I was talking with AD Mitchell at an event not that long ago, and we were talking about Bryan McClendon and what he brings to the program at Georgia. Obviously, Bryan, a receiver from back in the day at Georgia, made a. Yeah, for all of y'all who've forgotten about BMAC, the player, he was the guy that made the game-winning catch against Georgia Tech in 2015 from shock over the top. He about ran me into the padding there at Georgia Tech. There's probably this much difference between the field and the stands at Georgia Tech for those of you who've been there. But Bryan made that catch. That was a monumental catch. No, he was not AJ Green or that generation's Calvin Johnson. Bryan was a normal wide receiver, worked his way onto the field, and then worked his way up the coaching ranks. Bryan's going to be a head coach one day, okay? But what he brings to Georgia now is a particular, it's hard to describe quiet intensity, but that's what Bryan is like. And look, he grew up in the city. He understands recruiting. He understands development. If you don't think he understands development, I'm not sure how to convince you otherwise. But his recruiting is really the part that separates him from a lot of coaches in college football. And again, I say Bryan's going to be a head coach one day. Thomas Brown from Tucker and Georgia will be a head coach one day. But with BMAC, I don't know the backstory if there even was one when BMAC and Thomas were at Georgia after Mark Richt left. I mean, Bryan was the head coach of that team that beat Penn State in Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl in 2015, and then he went to Miami. I can't really remember everything. Or Carolina? It's Carolina. One of the two. And then, of course, he was at Oregon this past year. And with the change with Cristobal, he winds up at Georgia. They did a video for him coming back and so forth. Look, when you sign, well, first of all, when you sign Isaiah Crowell, you've done a masterful recruiting job. Because, and let me put that into perspective for people who don't know who Isaiah Crowell is. Okay, it's been 10 years, all right. But Isaiah was as big a deal recruit as there was at that time. I mean, he was viewed. I feel comfortable saying that he was viewed by some people on that staff as important a recruit as they had at that moment. And um, when Georgia finally got Isaiah and he signed, that was because of Bryan McClendon and Bryan's approach. Now he was going head up against Nick Saban. Okay, this was BMAC was going up against Isaiah, and Isaiah was not a talker. He did not communicate. I know this from personal experience, but he didn't talk to anybody was the problem. I mean, like with BMAC, through the years, I've grown to understand that was not just us. That was everybody. I mean, Coach Rick didn't really know what was going on. BMAC didn't really know what was going on. They thought they were in really good position. And then when Isaiah picked the Dogs, that was a really euphoric moment for that staff at Georgia because they knew they could turn the corner if they had the back they needed. And the Mississippi game, the Auburn game, part of the Florida game before he got banged up. The one of the reasons why Georgia won the East in 11 was because of Isaiah. Now, he was one of the reasons. He was not the only reason. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. We are offering the book. You are going to get the 2022 Dog Post preview with the book if you order it in time. I didn't order as many magazines as I should have. I get that now. That was a mistake on my part, but I still have them. Make sure that you're ordering it, and you can get DAWGSTRUCTION today. The link is down below. Now, they had Isaiah, and guess who? And Isaiah was still in the program and on the team when they signed Keith Marshall, 5-star, and Todd Gurley. Okay, those three guys were set to be the guys in 2012. Isaiah obviously dismissed from the program in the summer of 12. People were freaking out. They did not know what they had on hand with Todd Gurley. I remember talking with Bryan McClendon back in the day. You were allowed to talk to assistant coaches before the season. Kirby doesn't do that for what reason, I don't know, but whatever. And this was in early August. And Bryan, we were in well, I'm not going to describe it, but Bryan said, we thought Todd Gurley was pretty good. We knew, I think a lot of people thought Keith Marshall was good, and a lot of people did. But he said we thought Todd Gurley was pretty good too. The difference at the time was Todd played a lot of defense. I don't want to say he primarily played defense his junior year, but he played a lot of defense his junior year. And then secondly, he exploded on the scenes at Tarboro. There wasn't a lot of data out there on Todd Gurley. Obviously, he was very successful with the hurdles and the running in track. Todd was, I mean, I'm not going to go through the Todd and Herschel thing. I think a lot of y'all know how I feel about that. Todd was as special a running back as Georgia's ever had, including Herschel. So hate on if you'd like, but it's the truth. Now, those three guys were set to be at Georgia right after Keith and Todd get on campus. Bryan goes to look for more guys. The only guy I think, in my view, that Bryan missed out on was Alvin Kamara. That's it. And he lost him to Kirby. Who was that? I mean, this was a guy at Norcross. Kirby knew in December that Alvin Kamara was going to Alabama. Eventually left Alabama, went to Tennessee. Alvin Kamara was a straight up freak too. Now, if you never saw Alvin Kamara play in high school, you missed it. But soon thereafter I might be getting the years confused. But anyway, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, boom, all with Keith Marshall and Todd. This was a time when Bryan was getting pretty well anybody he wanted that was not named Alvin Kamara. And I think they came second in the Kamara sweepstakes at the time. I can't remember when Alvin went. I think he was a 13 guy. But when Nick and Sony got there, Georgia's running back position was as loaded as it's ever been. I mean, DeAndre Swift with Nick and with Nick and Sony, that was really, 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 really good. But y'all, they had Todd Gurley and Nick and Sony. I mean, I would take Todd over DeAndre Swift. All due respect in college, right? In the NFL, well, these are all different discussions, but they were all brought to you by Bryan McClendon. And he did a really good job at South Carolina getting running backs too. Marshawn Lynch, or not Marshawn Lynch, the very gifted running back from Maryland who's at South Carolina now. His name escapes me. He's had an injury, but you can't know what will happen with injuries and so forth. These guys are all Bryan McClendon folks, and that we've seen in back-to-back situations when the head coach has been dismissed or left, that Bryan has been the interim coach for the bowl game, shows you the seriousness that he has, or the seriousness by which you need to take Bryan. Again, he's 25, so what is he? He's probably 38 or 39. B-Mac, I'm sorry if I'm getting your age wrong. But it's just somewhere in there. But he's going to be a head coach at some point. And to have that caliber a person on your staff, like Del McGee, that is hard to express properly how important that is. You already have Muschamp, you already have Bobo that are around, but adding someone of the caliber of BMAC to a staff that also includes Del McGee, this is as good a staff as you're going to get in college football. And Bryan McClendon, helps make it that way. Is he perfect? No. If you want, if you want to hear the criticism, you ask the South Carolina fans. But he's not at South Carolina anymore. He's at Georgia, and he is going to use his considerable strengths in recruiting and development at wide receiver for Georgia to elevate itself at that spot. Georgia's been good at receiver. They've not been scary. And that's the part that I wonder if Bryan can get done. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, check out the book of the magazine. We'll see you on the website.